Happy birthday, dear Cecil. Happy birthday to
numerous
you.
states and countries, including Washington, Missouri, Mississippi, South Carolina, Ohio, California, New Mexico, Thailand, Philippines, and Vietnam. While he was in the Air Force, he and his wife, Betty, were also raising their two children, Christopher and Jennifer. Although he was away from home a lot on various Air Force assignments, he was a very hands-on dad, and I think that Jennifer and Chris will both attest to this. And it wasn't always a good hand, okay? There was always that, yeah, okay. So, and that was when he was able to be home. At this time, I would like to bring his two kids, Christopher and Jennifer, up to tell, well, just a little more about their father. Christopher lives in Albuquerque, and Jennifer lives in Maryland.
I think the plan was that the oldest one went first, but Chris would attest to you that I'm the princess and I get what I want. So there was a benefit to being the only daughter and the baby of the family. Chris would tell you it was pretty uneven, and I would tell you it was just right. So, what?
Put it up closer to your mouth.
Oh, I don't want to.
I know, but that's
I hate microphones.
I know, I do too.
I also don't public speak, so you're going to figure out which one of the children is very outgoing and who's very introverted. I was told I was talking, and I went, oh. So, no, I am not. So, gosh, Dad. I don't know. He was just Dad, and as I've talked to some of you, it's so interesting to see how people know him differently and how I know him. So that's been fun. Rebecca pointed out earlier that he's missing something in his resume. One of his earliest jobs was he ran moonshine. So if you didn't know that about my dad, now I was raised by a military officer. So I used to tell my brother he was born to the enlisted man and I was born to the officer. And he said, yes, you can tell, because you're pretty obnoxious. And so, but I love hearing the different stories, because I didn't see him in all those ways. He was just Dad. And I thought everybody's dad got up and put on a blue uniform every day. And when he retired and I was in high school, it was weird. He walked out in a suit. Didn't love that. When I got married just a few years later, he's like, I guess I'm wearing a tux. And I said, no, you're going to wear military blues, because that's what you wear. That's what there is. So yeah, he's pretty, oh gosh. Now I am going to cry for sure. This was our song. So, he taught me about family. And if you know him, he's there. He's there, whatever you need. He taught us to close ranks. Something happens, you get together, and you don't let it divide you. And I'm so grateful.
Say anything? You can go. All right. I think I can follow up on what Jennifer's saying. Yeah. We've been married for it'll be 16 years, dating for 18. Know about Cecil is, anything, as Jen said, with family. He would show up to all the softball games and all the basketball games and all the dance recitals and everything. That was where I first met him, watching recreational softball, which is any resemblance between that and professional is purely coincidental. But then I got to know Cecil a little bit more individually with time spent. And if there's one thing you learn, you talk about love languages, that with Cecil is definitely his personal time. And we've had many, many conversations, either sitting in the living room, sitting around the dining room table, sitting on the porch at the cabin somewhere, just having incredibly deep conversations about anything and everything. Sometimes sprinkled in with a few off-color jokes. I won't share any tonight, but all you gotta do is talk to Cecil, and you'll have a few before too long. But one of the things we did last year, we brought my oldest grandson, Noah, who's 6.5. His father arranged a trip out to the cabin in High Rolls, where it was Noah, Ryan, Noah's dad, both of Noah's grandfathers, me and Ryan's dad, with Cecil, and we spent a week up at the cabin just doing boy things, man things. I mean, everything from fishing and hiking to cutting down yucca for hiking sticks, learning about how not to touch a cactus, and then just fishing and lots of porch time. And one of the things I just discovered again is just spend a few minutes with Cecil and you will soak up a lot more than you ever anticipated knowing. So happy birthday to you. It has been a pleasure so far. May we have many more years to come for all of that.
You gonna sit?
You want me up here with you?
Go for it. Have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat. Well, I will keep everyone a little bit on the seat of their pants for a second, but when they said I was going to be the first one to speak, at first I was like, geez, what are they doing? You know, we mean get Chris up there before the open bar or something, you know. So, but the thing is that we're celebrating Dad's 80th birthday, and I realized that he's accomplished something that usually you need one more milestone to do, but somehow he's already in a museum. So, now, no one here is normal, because if you were normal, you wouldn't be here. So, and Dad is normal some of the time. I mean, he does sleep. So the rest of the time, he just kind of does what Cecil does. And it may make no sense to anyone else, but he just kind of has a way of always making it come together. So, and that is one of the things that I learned, is that you just stay in the fight. You just keep going until you get it figured out. So that was one of the fun things. So the rest of the time, Dad is absolutely a must-see event. A couple of times a year, he's going to do something that you don't want to miss. And that's how every one of us have so many stories about Dad. And honestly, I couldn't limit it down to just one quick one to tell you. Everyone has their own story. Other people get the chance to come up and get to share that. I just came up here to say that he wasn't just a parent. He was a mentor, so a role model, a very bad influence. So, but my greatest ally and my truest friend. So here's to you, Dad. Happy 80th.
And that is toast to Cecil. To Cecil. To Cecil. All right, to Cecil. Okay, so from there, which was quite enlightening, after Vietnam, when Cecil was in Vietnam, he was assigned to Shaw Air Force Base in South Carolina, where he did an Air Force duties while he attended the University of South Carolina at night. He was then selected to the Airmen's Education and Commissioning Program and finished the electrical engineering degree at the University of Missouri and was commissioned a second lieutenant. After assignments at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where he actually completed his master's in electrical engineering, and Holloman Air Force Base, he was one of the 27 Air Force officers selected out of 1,500 applicants for the Air Force Test Pilot School. He went on to the Test Pilot School to have an adventure of a lifetime, He loved being a pilot and being up in the air and within the clouds, which was not always the case, which you will get to witness in this YouTube video that we're about to show. You all probably have had a chance to kind of look at the Credible Sport program that we have on your tables that kind of explains this program. But Cecil was actually on this plane, not as the pilot, which I'm proud to say, because it was actually pilot error that wrecked this plane. And so this is the short takeoff and landing version of the C-130, which was built for the intended use of rescuing the hostages from Iran. And this was in 1980. Cecil, would you like to explain just a little bit about how that affected the election for that year and how Ronald Reagan, you don't have to get up, you have a mic. So he will explain to you how this actually affected the United States, how it could have gone had Ronald Reagan or decided not to go forth with the program.
Okay. Not only was it designed to rescue the hostages, but it was designed to save Carter's presidency, because this was supposed to happen in October before the election. Sorry, we crashed the airplane. So now, I'm going to tell you something good about Jimmy Carter, because I think Jimmy Carter was a good man. But he was a bad president, but he was a good man. But the colonel that was in charge of this project went to brief him after the crash. And Carter asked him, can you get the other airplane retrofitted and be ready to go? And the colonel said, yes, sir, we can. Said, is it safe? Said, sir, we will not have an opportunity to test this to its maximum. We will do our best, but if you tell us to go, we will go. And Carter said, if it is not safe, don't go. So Carter relinquished the chance. As a result, we were supposed to go in February, January or February, when we could get it ready. Ronald Reagan won the election and was inaugurated on January the 20th, 1981. And that day, they did not want to deal with Ronald Reagan, and they released the hostages. Therefore, this airplane never went to Iran. How would it turn out? I don't know. It was an iffy mission, but a lot of things are. But Jimmy Carter did a humanitarian thing. Jimmy Carter was a good man. Ronald Reagan was a good president. Thank you. Okay.
So now I want to go to the fact that, that was just one of Cecil's 9 lives. He's almost a cat. During his flying career, he had 3 in-flight fires while he was testing planes. He actually had 1 shoot down. He had 1 bailout, and he had 13 emergency landings. Okay? So I just have to tell you that when we travel on a plane, he can calm down the most, anxious flyer. In fact, I just witnessed this at Christmas. We were flying to Maryland to visit everybody at this table over here with him. And this lady was just freaked out. She just was not a flyer. He turns to her and goes, I just want to tell you that if God was going to take me on a plane, he had every opportunity to do it. I am not going to die from a plane wreck. And before we landed, this lady turns to him and thanks him for calming her down, because she knew she was not going to die that day, because God was not going to take Cecil that day. There was no way. I mean, God had every single chance to do that. So while living in Albuquerque, he became a hunting guide. And he joined forces with his great friend, Dennis Hoffman, and his wife, Mary. They actually decided to join forces and start an outfitting business, okay? It was called Kaufman Outfitters. The way this works is somebody has to have the outfitter license, and fortunately, Dennis was willing to do that. So they came together and they operated together a very, very successful guide business for years, from actually 1983, or until 1983, which is when they merged with a company called Kiowa Outfitters. Oh, he's going to correct me here.
83 is when we started. We merged with Kiowa 8 years ago.
Okay, so correction made. They started the business, Dennis and Cecil, in 1983. And then they eventually merged with a company called Kiowa. And the reason was Dennis and Cecil were getting a little older, and they decided they did not want to do all the paperwork that's involved. As we all know, nowadays everything involves endless pages of paperwork. Well, at this time, Dennis and Cecil had been friends for about 50 years. And I just have to tell you that when they decided to start this business, they both agreed that we will do nothing that is going to jeopardize our friendship. If there's ever a conflict, if there's ever something that we think is going to endanger our friendship, we will not do it. To this date, Dennis and Cecil have never had an argument, never had a disagreement, have never, what would you say, fought with each other? Now introduce you to Cecil's very best friend of 50 plus years, Dennis Kaufman.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be speaking. I may make a little error in this. I got it written down, so I may not make any big errors. It's been 40 years, as she said, since we started the guide business. And I'm going to start with the things I learned from Cecil. It's not funny. By the fall of '75, we had hunted together several times. And he and his son Chris, who's back there, he talked earlier, went together down West Side Road in the Sacramento Mountains. And it was the first time I'd been on a deer hunt where someone killed a deer with a bow. And that was Cecil. Chris, what were you, about 5 years old? 6. Okay. So that was fun. Cecil and I wanted to do some mule deer scouting up near the Sunspot Observatory. Again, that's about 60 air miles from here, over around Alamogordo. So we had a wonderful outdoor evening meal, and then we slept in my Suburban overnight. And then early the next morning, we started hiking around looking at the terrain. During some of the previous conversations I'd had with Cecil, he had mentioned something that he referred to as pitch pine. Hold up your hands if you... Okay, so about 25% of the people in the room. I'd never heard of it, but he was pretty excited about it. He said you could light a fire just by scraping something and throwing sparks on it. Yeah, okay. We scouted for deer until around noon. And then we stopped and ate the sandwiches that we had prepared. After we began walking again, Cecil mentioned, "Oh, I had intended to show you pitch pine." I immediately thought, why would you want to spend an hour and a half scraping something, trying to light a fire in the middle of a nice warm day like today? But I said something like, okay. Less than 2 minutes later, he stopped walking. And he pointed brownish yellow wood. Closer? Okay. On an old dead tree. And he had ignited it by throwing sparks into it. You can tell how it impressed me. So he handed me the thing that was called a metal match, which you could make the sparks with. We separated, took two different routes back to my Suburban that we'd slept in. And on the way back, I started looking for and finding pitch pine. I lit 3 separate fires on my way back. Nothing else has made me more relaxed in the woods than knowing what pitch pine will do for you. Okay, we're almost done with the first page.
I told him he could take as long as he wants. He's his oldest friend. Or longest friend, let me get that.
Some years later, he taught me some good things about sharpening knives, too. No detail on that. He was always more physically capable than I was. He could walk longer, walk faster, carry heavier weight than I could. Before he was then reassigned in California, what year was that? Was that 77?
December 76.
Okay, close to 77. He mentioned to me one day that it was much more physically demanding to walk, hike, backpack, whatever, wearing denim jeans than it was to wear a softer, weaker pair of pants. And he was right. Much less physically taxing. Now, at the bottom of the page, I have these words. He was right. Is Kelly wearing shorts?
All right, wait, well, time out. Kelly, we need you to stand up, buddy. Where are you, Kelly? Okay. I have to tell you, this is the first time in very many years that I have ever seen Kelly not in cut-off jeans. This is the first time I've ever seen this man in long pants. And you'll see more of this later.
And just
Doesn't matter what the weather is.
Just as an aside to what Cecil has taught me, Kelly and I have been friends since November of 1956. Cecil and I have only been friends since the summer of '74. Is that right? Now I'll turn the page over.
They actually grew up together as children.
Yes, Kellen and I did.
Yeah.
We have a long history with a few little bumps in it, but not many. Cecil taught me many things about cooking. He figured out how he could cook 2 pounds of bacon at one time in one pan when we were feeding our hunter clients. Yes, it works really well. He and Chris often cooked and fed wild game meat to more than 100 people at a time while they lived in Albuquerque. At that time, you could only legally keep your game meat that you shot in one following year. Now you can keep it for a year from the day you've killed it, which makes more sense. Okay. I'd like you to please raise your hands if you have ever been fed fresh caught shrimp in the evening of the day those shrimp were caught, while you were sitting beside a campfire in the White Mountain Wilderness. Cecil did that. His contributions to various government are important. He is an expert at getting his point across at public meetings. Often his input has favorably influenced New Mexico's hunting rules. He has performed some services in the military that no other person has performed. Now, I didn't know until I got here tonight that Operation Credible Sport was going to be mentioned. But that was the specific thing I had in mind when I made that statement, when I printed up this paper. For those of you who may not be familiar with aircraft dynamics, twice in that video there was a scene that was dark and the plane burst into flame and began to move. The technical specifics, it may be in that paper that's on the table. If I'm remembering them right, when that plane started to take off, by the time it had moved forward 15 or 25 feet, the nose wheel was already 15 feet off the ground because he had designed the mechanism to make it do that. To land, stop, and take off in a soccer field, that was the objective. Okay. Cecil is the best joke teller I have ever met. Prior to the internet's influence on our society, passing jokes among an assortment of your friends and acquaintances was an appreciated talent. Roughly 35 years ago, I was present when a third party, now in this room, standing over there by that computer screen. Faye. Recorded Cecil telling jokes nonstop for roughly 2 hours. Is that correct? I gotta blow my nose, sorry.
They actually had a contest one time, didn't you, with some guy that is supposed to see who could tell the most jokes in the least amount of time?
Christopher telling my jokes.
Yeah, okay.
All of your jokes, and you told some of mine too.
Yeah, and my line said, without when it normally was, to those particular people that were within earshot. He could address his history with the people he knew and modify the joke to fit the instant. He could exhibit sarcasm in humorous ways as well. Have any of you ever heard that? Or seen that? The best example of which I can recall occurred at one of those big game feeds that I mentioned earlier. One of the guests, with whom I don't think Cecil was well acquainted, approached Cecil and began to express her negative thoughts about hunting and especially about eating that nasty game meat. After a few verbal exchanges that had not gone particularly well, Cecil asked her if she enjoyed eating beef. As you can imagine, she indicated that she did and that she thought it was a good and proper thing. Cecil then said something approximately like I'm going to say right now.
Might have left out a few nasty words.
It's commonly stated now that people are what they eat. And cattle are fat, nearly blind, and quite stupid. Over the last 50 years, he has shared dozens of extremely funny things from his growing up years. Do I have permission to expound on those?
Free reign, Dennis, free reign.
Okay. I'm not going to go into all the details about them, but if there is enough of an uproar in the audience here tonight that you want to hear the detail, I will give it to you. The instances are that I can recall: the cat in the mailbox, the snake in the suitcase, falling backward onto his own bed, discovering happily that he was not adopted, His dad's comment as his dad spoke to his mother and put on his hat as he stepped out of the house door. That one is not so well known. Why, one of his senior high school teachers stated to him at the end of the school year, with Cecil, you of all people, when Cecil had used the Bible as a source for a very complicated, was it an English class project? English class project. There have been times when my personal circumstances were very stressful. Career at IBM got bumpy once in a while. I worked for IBM for 31 years. When my only child passed away, and when I filed and completed a divorce from my first wife. And I will mention as a separate item that the lady who's now my first wife, Mary, we've been married, 27 now? Yeah. She was also very supportive to both me and my first wife when our only child died. Now I'll close with how much I appreciate the last gift that Cecil has made to me. This Christmas, he gave me a battery-powered leaf blower. And explained to me how very effective it would be to blow the crap out of my Suburban. Thank you for pre-laughing at those jokes.
Thank you, Dennis. That was fabulous. I think that very much speaks to the relationship that these two have had over 50 plus years. A lot of respect there, a lot of devotion and love. So I think it's now time to toast to Cecil. That's right. Okay, so during Cecil's outfitting days, he met numerous people that actually became lifetime friends. They weren't just clients. They turned into people that he loved and respected and is still in his life today. One of which, as Dennis mentioned earlier, is Faye Henry. They have been friends for a very long time. She has worked along Cecil to produce so many wonderful things. Faye is a woman that is the woman that has edited and published Cecil's poetry book, which was his lifetime dream. He was inspired into poetry by his grandmother. She taught him the love of poetry. In his early years, he started writing his own poetry, and he always had the dream of publishing it. Well, thanks to Faye and her amazing abilities, she made that happen for Cecil. And by the way, they are available for sale over here in the corner, and we have 10 copies available on hand for anybody that wants to buy one. And Faye can also take orders from you to go ahead and order the book and have it shipped to you. And by the way, anyone that does that, he will autograph it personally. So, in years, it could be worth millions. Okay. So Cecil actually met Faye in 1984. It was actually on the first ever ibex hunt in the Florida mountains up near Deming. This was the first hunt in New Mexico history for ibex. With a bow. I'm sorry, I left that part out. He met her through one of his very dear friends, which was also a guide for Cecil. And his name was Kelly Chaplin. And as Dennis has already introduced you, he's the man that never wears pants. So it was kind of ironic because Faye and Kelly were air traffic controllers. And they happened to be sort of fired because they went on strike, if anybody remembers these times in the Reagan days. And all of a sudden, Kelly and in the Florida mountains, why don't you go with me? And that is how Cecil was first introduced to Faye. So at this time, I would actually very much like to bring up Faye Henry and Kelly Chaplin. And by the way, Faye is from Georgia, and Kelly is from Texas.
And so we're going to share the mic so that I can control what Kelly says. If I need to, I can take it away. That's right. Some things never change. Do you want to go first? No. So when I went to the Floridas that day, I didn't realize what a blessing I was getting. I had a good friend in Kelly we've known each other for a long time. I don't know, close to 45 years now, 46, 47. We've been on strike for 40-something years, so we knew each other before that. But the day that he introduced me to Cecil and to Dennis, I gained 2 new friends that have been lifelong, and I am so grateful for that. I was told that we were supposed to roast Cecil, and so the only thing that I can think of to share with you that is really bad that Cecil exposed me to, other than the time he threatened to kill me, and Dennis was there when that happened, so I have a witness. His daughter's like, what? So there's a story. We were hiking out of a wilderness somewhere in the mountains, and it was in the springtime. And as we left camp, we all had backpacks on, and on the back of Cecil's backpack, he put his pistol so that if we encountered a bear or anything else, that somebody would have quick access to it. On the back of my backpack, on the outside, I attached my camera. We were walking down, and we hear this wolf, and then a mama bear kind of makes a charge at us, and we stop and back up a little bit, and Cecil says to me, Faye, give me my pistol. And I say to Dennis, get my camera off my backpack. And so as Cecil is just standing in front watching the bear, and Dennis and I are trying to get a camera and a pistol off the backpack. And Cecil says to me, Faye, because I'm talking about my camera, I hope that the first thing you get is my pistol, because if it's not, the first thing I shoot is going to be you. So Kelly was responsible for bringing me to the Floridas and introducing me to the people there. But it was Cecil that one day said, Gayla wants to go. We're going up on the top to run goats around for the hunters, and so Gayla wants to go. Would you like to go with us? And I said, sure. That was the first time I went to the top of the mountain. And the thing that Cecil taught me that probably was not a good idea for us to do, but was one of the most entertaining things I did all week was he taught me to roll rocks off the top of the mountain. And Cecil and Gayla and I rolled some really big rocks down those mountains that day. And Cecil, I brought you a gift. You and I, at our age, would find it difficult to go up and roll those rocks off the mountain. So in Georgia, we have agate. And I dug this agate out of the ground and polished it for you. And it looks like a mountain. And there's actually little rocks set up there around the edges where you could roll them off. And so I know we're not going to climb the Floridas today, but you've got a rock memory of that. And we never once really thought about the people down below when we rolled those rocks. The other thing that Cecil taught me to do, well, you guys, I don't know, maybe it's a senior moment. I've just forgotten, so I'm going to let Kelly share this for a bit, and I'll think about what I was going to tell you for the second thing.
Like I don't have senior moments. Now, these women already took everything I was supposed to say up here, but I was invited out here by Miss Renee to make a confession. And the confession was that I was, in fact, responsible for Cecil knowing Henry, and vice versa. And this is Henry. You know her as Faye. I know her either as Henry or Hank. That goes back to our air traffic control days. That's a long story, but it's not about Cecil. But when we came to that ibex hunt, that was 1988, which I learned only recently because I had forgotten, didn't even take a senior moment. That's a long time ago. So I bring this girl along in my little motorhome, and we're all parked at the bottom of the mountain, getting ready for the hunt. And everybody is meeting everybody, and I am in fact guilty of having introduced Faye to Cecil. I probably, again, a long time ago, but I think I knew it wasn't a good idea, but I didn't think it was unlawful. So I don't know why I'm called upon to confess. Yeah, I did it. I'm guilty. I wouldn't do it again, Your Honor. But and the part about Cecil giving mountain tours to the guests there at the camp, while everybody else is out scouting the mountain, trying to find goats for the ibex hunters, Cecil Bob is giving guided tours, but only to the cute little Georgia peach that I brought along, that he assumed I brought for him, I'm sure. And a little red-headed girl that was the wife of one of the hunters, I think the kid that killed the goat, yeah. And she was worth taking up on top of the mountain, there's no question. But that's what Cecil was doing while the rest of us were working. And the thing that I remember most about that particular hunt, and I couldn't even remember the year, we had to look it up, but these outfitters had like 5 or 6 fools that thought they could come down here and kill these ibex with a sharp stick. Hell, I've been up there with guys with rifles that couldn't kill one of these ibex. So I said to Cecil, I bet you $100 don't nobody ever draw blood with a sharp stick on one of them goats. I think that lasted almost until dark, until one of those kids killed an ibex with a sharp stick. And I had to pay $100 for this trip that I'm supposed to be employed on. So that was my first introduction to doing business with Cecil. Never have had that happen again either.
I was there that day, I remember, and all I remember is that the sexy legs.
That's another thing. This woman over here, I didn't mind driving 600 miles out here for Cecil's big party, but I thought making me wear long pants was a little extreme. Because the weather out here is not bad enough yet to go to long pants. So.
I think you'll see in the video later that when Dennis and Mary got married, he wore a tuxedo jacket with his cutoffs, with his short jean cutoffs. And that was the best you're ever going to get out. But look what I did. He's got pants.
Cecil, I don't think he would have done that for anyone other than you or. So the other thing that I was going to share with y'all is really kind of a confession. And Cecil, if you and Dennis are not doing business anymore, so he can't, he can't do anything to you at this time. But if any of you have ever been on the Floridas know that the Floridas and alcohol or snow or ice do not mix. And there's only one time I have ever started up any peak on the mountain after having imbibed. And do you remember that? So it was one of those days when Cecil was working as a spotter from down below in his truck and driving around. And I spent the day driving around in the truck with him. And it was late in the afternoon, and I don't remember exactly what had happened, but Dennis had contacted Cecil on the radio and said, I think we're done for the day. So if y'all want to head back to camp, we'll, start supper, we'll see you there. So it was just about sunset. No, wrong day. So we went back to camp, decided that, well, if we're done for the day, we're not walking up any more hills, we'll open a bottle of wine and have a glass of wine. And we did. And then Dennis came over the radio. Cecil, where are you? Can y'all get in the truck and come around? There's a goat in a cave, and it's not coming out, and we've got a hunter in position, and the goat's not moving. We want you to walk up some place and make lots of noise and sing and yell and run the goat out. And we were just going to go a little ways and make a lot of noise. Well, we got there, and the goat obviously liked Cecil singing because he didn't move. And I don't remember if that was the day we went back for a gun, but I think it was. We went back to camp, got a gun, and then we walked all the way up quite a distance. And I can assure you that the Floridas is not a place you want to go after having one glass of wine. So, and I think that the guy did get the goat, right? Do you remember that?
You're talking
Dennis? I think he did. But we didn't plan to break the rules that day, but we did. And then when you said, can you come up and scare the goat, we said, sure. But it was not a good idea. And those are the only two bad things I can think to say about Cecil, and I don't think either one of those are bad. My life has been enriched by knowing Cecil and Betty and his Jennifer, Christopher, and then Renee. I don't see anything, I just am so grateful that you're in my life.
In closing, all I would say was I equate my introducing Cecil to Faye, or Faye to Cecil, as the white knight introducing the fair maiden to the dragon.
You two are amazing, and you can see the connection that the three of these had over so many years. Both of these people have been so instrumental in Cecil's, I always call Chad, in Cecil's life, they have played very important, parts in his life. They are treasured, they are appreciated, and I just can't say enough about those two. So thank you very much, you guys. So let's go on to Cecil's family. Cecil is very close to all of his grandchildren, but being raised in Albuquerque while Cecil was stationed at Kirkland Air Force Base, Brittany, which is Christopher's daughter, okay, basically she followed in his footsteps just from him being there for her childhood through her adolescent years. And now, well, I'll get to that later, because she has followed him in his footsteps, and she has become an avid hunter. And I'm not just talking about Cecil, but, her father had a huge influence on her life, so it was both of them. But Cecil played a very important role in her life. And she's become a hunter, a shooter, a fisherwoman. Is that the right word? And she's an amazing cook and baker. And that all came from her influence from her grandfather. She recently met and invited in her life the man of her dreams. They are engaged, and they are planning a wedding that will take place later this year, probably in the fall. Well, I shouldn't say probably. It will be in the fall. And Cecil and I both have been amazingly honored that they have asked to have it at our place in the mountains, up in High Rolls. They love that, they're connected to that, and they live in North Carolina, but they are asking their friends to join them to come to New Mexico, because this is where their heart is. And we are just beyond honored that they have asked us to do that, to host their wedding. So basically, in talking about Brittany, anyone that has known Cecil for any amount of time has heard about Brittany. She is a very accomplished woman. She went to Notre Dame. She graduated top of her class. She began working for IBM. She is currently an executive at IBM, and it is my very amazing pleasure to introduce her. She does not want to give a speech, but I want each and every one of you to know her, because you've heard so much about her. It is time that you put a face to that name. Brittany. And Brittany is Chris's daughter. Brittany brings to our family an amazing culture as being half Navajo. We have learned so much about the Navajo culture through her. She has brought a whole new realm to our life, and we appreciate her more than we can ever say. So, as I mentioned, Cecil takes great pride in his relationships. He makes friends very easily, and he believes in maintaining his friendships. He believes that takes effort, it takes work. Some people don't want to invest that into making friends that are long-term friends, but Cecil's never steered away from that. If he meets someone, they're going to be his friend. So many of these relationships that he has developed, they're not just passing and going relationships. They come in your life, they go out of your life. They last for years, decades. And many of you that have experienced this from Cecil that know that that's how he is, that he's just, you're not just a passing thing to him. You came into his life for a reason, and he is going to do everything to continue that relationship. And actually, most of you in this room fall into that category. One of Cecil's very treasured friends is a man that Cecil first guided as a client in 2013. He guided him for elk. And since that time, they have become the best of friends. And literally, inseparable. They have been on more than 6 hunts together, and it is actually such an amazing pleasure for me to introduce to you Bernie Kennett, and he is from New York State. He is a retired New York State trooper. And this is Bernie.
Story, if you know Cecil and Renee, you know they like dogs. Go over there, there's 6 of them running around. And I have to cheat and verify the names. We have Daisy, Boomer, Penny, Ranger, Tito, and Tanga. 2 more and they can be in the Iditarod. And does anyone know the story behind Tito and Tanga?
Yeah, their honors are here. Okay, wait. Renee and Carl?
Raise your hand, please.
That's who you acquired Tito and Tanga.
Okay. 14 dog years ago, I get a phone call from Cecil and Renee and said, we're fostering these 2 chocolate labs. Do you know anybody that needs a dog? I'm like, well, Emmy's kind of old. We can't do that to her. And he goes, well, we got to find a good home for them. And he goes, but they're 5. And he says, I don't know. It's going to be kind of tough because everybody wants a puppy. And Renee's on the line. And he says, they come as a pair. And I saw where this was going right away. So Renee gets on and she says, I'm making these flyers. I'm putting them up around town, pictures of the dog. I got them set up to the family. I got them set up to the hunter. I got them set up to the group that may adopt these dogs to assisted living dogs. And she says, I got these little strips you pull off the bottom with the contact information. She says, I'm putting them up all over town. And we finished our conversation. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that, Renee. So we talk over the subsequent months and weeks, and finally I say, how's the dog relocation program going? And she goes, it's very frustrating. I says, what do you mean? She says, I go out, and every time I check these flyers, the contact information is gone, and I've yet to get a phone call. And Cecil chimes in. She goes, you know, they're over 5. Everybody wants a puppy, and they come as a pair, so it's going to take time. Last fall, I get a call one night. He's up to High Rolls, and he says, sitting up here at High Rolls, the dogs have chased an elk out of the yard. Holds the phone up. I can hear the elk bugling. Says, I'm watching a beautiful sunset. What are you doing in New York? I said, well, my golden retriever puppy just chased a squirrel over the chain link fence. It's dark. I'm watching the bats chase mosquitoes, and I can smell my neighbor's marijuana. He says, yeah, he says, I can feel for you. He says, it's time to have a talk with Renee. And I'm like, ruh-roh, what's going on out there in New Mexico? He says, been almost 2 years. I'm 2 years? He goes, yeah. He goes, since we tried to place those dogs. And he says, looks like it's not going to happen. Looks like we're going to have to raise them to the end. I'm like, okay. I says, I couldn't ask for a better home. And he finally says, don't ever tell her. He says, but you know those little contact sheets? I'm like, yeah. He says, I was following around town. And he says, as soon as she left the store, I'd go in and rip them all out. On a serious note, on one of my trips out here, Cecil must have detected something going on in my life. And out of the blue, he says, you know, family and friends can be a lot of work. And I remember looking at him, and he goes, yeah. He goes, there's going to be difficult times in your life. And you're going to have to resolve some issues with your family and friends, and you may have to work your tail off. He said, when it all comes down to it, that's the most important thing you can have in your life. Nothing more was said. I don't know if you remember that night. Nothing more was said. On the way home on the plane, I thought about it. In the subsequent weeks, I thought about it. And I looked into my heart, and I was able to fix some relationships, make some new ones. With friends and family, and it's definitely made it a big improvement in my life. And several times in my personal life and my professional life, I could see something going on with somebody, and I said, you know, my friend Cecil out in New Mexico, and a lot of people go, is the elk guide? And I go, yeah. I says, he told me sometimes family and friends have got to be a lot of work, and you all know the rest of the story because you're part of his family and friend group, and it's incredible to be part of that. Cecil, thank you very much for everything. Renee, thank you very much for everything. And every one of you here are blessed by being part of this group tonight. So thank you, my friend. Happy birthday.
Toast to Cecil. I think we've made it pretty clear tonight that family and friends are actually the most important thing to Cecil. There's nothing what I would call more important in this world to him, and he strives to make that the focus of his life. He and I have both been blessed with amazing family, which, by the way, is at my table here. These are my children, and it goes through our entire lives, and we are so, so, so very grateful to every single person in this room. You have touched our lives in ways that you don't even know. You know, we've got family, we've got friends, and people we can depend on. So I want to tell you that sometimes family and friends actually, do come together and they provide great times for us, and we appreciate that. But there is this one occasion where Cecil and family actually invited someone else to the party, and his name was Jack. And he actually came to the party, and he joined in for a sing-along. And I'm going to Faye actually is going to show you this sing-along.
Oh, Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. I used to have a girlfriend, but I guess she just couldn't compete with all of these love-starved women who keep clamoring at my feet. Well, sometimes I could find me another, but hell, they're on and off of me. I guess it has something that I always heard about.
Oh, but that is not the end. The accumulation of these three, Christopher, Cecil, and Jack, continued throughout the evening.
I'm Colonel Jackson. In 1814, we took a little trip down to Mississippi to reside in Mississippi. We took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we caught the bloody British in the town of New Orleans. We fired our guns and the British kept a-coming. There was not as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hickory said we could take them by surprise if we didn't fire a musket until we looked them in the eyes. We held our fire till we see their faces well, then we opened up the squirrel guns and really gave them well. We fired our guns and the British kept coming. There was not as many as there was a while ago. Fired once more and they began to run down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Well, they ran through the brambles and they ran through the bushes and they ran through the places that a rabbit couldn't go. They ran so fast that the hounds couldn't catch them on down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Up, 2, 4. Fired our guns till the barrel melted down. So we grabbed an alligator and we fought another round. We filled in 7 cannonballs and powdered his behind. When we locked the powder up, the baiter lost his mind. We fired our guns and the British kept coming. There was not as many as there was a while ago. We fired once more and they began to run down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. Up, 2, 3, 4. Up, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, no. The evening is not over, okay? So you got to keep listening, and eventually you might actually catch a word or two that you understand.
Oh, Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror, 'cause I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. I used to have a girlfriend, but I guess she just couldn't compete with all of these love-starved women who keep clamoring at my feet. Well, sometimes I could find me another, but hell, they're on and off of me. I guess it has something that I always screwed it up.
So how do you think this evening progressed? Oh, yeah, just wait. Pretty soon they don't even know the words to the song.
All right, because I like beer. It makes me a jolly good fellow. I like beer. It helps me unwind, and sometimes it makes me feel mellow. Makes me feel mellow. Boom, 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 whiskey's too rough. Champagne costs too much. Vodka puts my mouth in gear. This little refrain should help me explain. As a matter of fact, I like beer. One night I had a dream and I passed from the scene to a land oh so divine. The water was clear and it tasted like beer. Then they turned it all into wine. I like beer. It makes me a jolly good fellow. I like beer. It helps me unwind, and sometimes it makes me feel mellow. Makes me feel mellow. Boom, 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 whiskey's too rough. Champagne costs too much. Vodka puts my mouth in gear. This little refrain should help me explain. As a matter of fact, I like beer. I love beer. I love beer too.
He and I were just on the other side of the bar, the counter. Yeah, it was a counter. We were at our house. Well, it wasn't our house. Gail. This was our house in Mayhill, which belonged to Cecil's dear friends, R.L. and Patty. And Gail is here tonight, and she is Gail and R.L.'s daughter. Patty and R.L.'s daughter. Maybe I've had too much to drink. Okay, but anyway, it was. Brittany and I were just on the other side, just absolutely laughing our tails off. Okay, so I think that's a good one to toast. You guys were pretty toasty. To Cecil. Okay, so as of right now, I want to tell you guys have listened to, all of these individuals that were brave enough to come up here and tell their stories about Cecil. Each and every one of these people have held a very special part in Cecil's heart, in his life, and who he is, and he has affected them and their lives. So at this time, before we cut the cake, before we serve the cake, is there anyone else in this room would like to make any comments about Cecil or their experiences with Cecil or their connection to Cecil? No? Okay, well that's perfectly fine because I don't like being up here either. I don't blame you. But my son is sitting over here, and there's something that he always said as a child. Okay, fine, but can we talk about me now? My son, Chad, please stand up. Okay, he's not going to stand up. Can we talk about me now? Really. So I met Cecil in 2007. It didn't take me long to realize that he is a very unique and very special person, which I think both of you, or all of you, have come to realize tonight. He's not just your average Joe, right? Okay? I personally know him inside and out. We have had some very hard times. We have gone through a lot together. We have some really rough patches. Cancer didn't help that at all. We have laughed. We have cried together. And we have grieved for the people in our lives that, like you, were very important to us, and we've lost. My mother, my father, his family members. We have grieved together. We have been through so much together. And I am here to tell you right now that I am very thankful that Cecil is that he is my husband, that he was born, and that he's survived his 9+ lives, which God knows he could have gone at any moment. And we don't know what tomorrow holds, okay? So we're thankful for a couple of things. Today, and each and every one of you in this room, we are celebrating my husband tonight on his 80th birthday, which we weren't sure we were going to make it, but we did. Cecil, I love you with all my heart. And I want to just say happy birthday. I would like for each and every one of you to raise your glass. At this point, I don't care if it's empty. To Cecil. Okay? And, at this point, I think there's nothing else to say, to do. And before we cut the cake and we serve the cake, I hope all of you got an opportunity to look at his cake. It's all about who he is, the wilderness, the outdoors. That's what he loves. That's who he is. And I just want to say that at this point, I am very, very honored to bring up Major Cecil Haas.
Hello, family. You're all my family. Some of you were born into it, some of you were married into it, and some of you just embraced this chaos that is our family. And I have no idea why you did, but I'm damn glad that you did. I love every one of you. You are giving me the most important present that I could have, because the only thing we really have is relationships and time. You could be doing lots of other things tonight. Some of you, all of you have given me such wonderful gifts by you being here. I owe a lot. She did all this. I didn't do any of it. And her assistant, Becky Owen, has worked tirelessly. Where's Becky?
Becky.
She, New York to be slave labor.
Without pay.
But I am honored. I'm humbled. I am eternally grateful for you being here. This is more of a birthday party than I could have ever expected, and I'm just overwhelmed. Thank you very much. That's all I got. Have a good time. They're gonna sing happy birthday, though.
Gina wants another kiss. My right-hand girl, Becky, can we light the candles, please? And actually, Rofe, you could probably help because we have 2 cakes to light. Yeah. And Cecil, I need you by the cake. By the cake, please. Are there matches over there? There's a light. Becky, do you know where the flicker is? Well, there's a flicker. Okay. So we're going to light the candles on the cake. And Bernie just said, "Oh, what you mean? There's no pitch pine?" Okay, so we have one cake that is a 3-layer cake with multiple flavors, and then we also have a cake that is nothing but 80 candles. So he is going to blow out the 80 candles as soon as we get this lit. What are you looking for? Oh, honey, it's not there. I'm sorry, I let you down. So what Cecil really wanted to do was he wanted to have the 80 candle cake, but he wanted to have a rigid blower, okay, to actually set up and blow out the candles because he knew he couldn't do it. So, Renee is horrible. She did not bring the leaf blower. Yeah. Well, we actually learned about this rigid leaf blower from Mr. Eric, which got me addicted because that's how I keep all the 6-dog hair out of my house. I just go through the living room and I blow it out the front door. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, I let him down. I did not bring the leaf blower to blow out his candles because he's pretty sure that he's not going to be able to blow them all out. Okay, well, you know what? We're going to put all our faith into that you can do it. Take deep breaths. This is the man that survived Vietnam. This is the man that survived cancer. This is the man that can surely blow out the candles, right? Yes, and we are going to sing Happy Birthday as soon as all these candles are lit. But I also want to introduce you to Cecil's 3 grandchildren that are here, okay? We have, of course, Brittany, which you have all met. We have Natalie, and we have Rebecca. Cecil has girls wants the happy birthday. You all sing happy birthday. They are going to sing Cecil's version of the second verse. And so we have Brittany, we have Rebecca, and we have Natalie. This is 3 of the 4 grandkids. Or 5, I'm sorry, 5 grandchildren.
All girls.
All girls, by the way. All right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Cecil. Happy birthday to you. May you live 1,000,000 years. May you drink 1,000,000 beers. Get plastered, you bastard. Happy birthday to you.
you.